Welcome in episode number 49 of the St0ner Sports Radio podcast. Joining me once again is Zach Huffman from the Zach Huffman Cave back in the city, and we will cover the Red River Shootout. We will cover USC Notre Dame. We'll get you all caught up on how the Oregon Ducks and Washington Huskies fared over Saturday. Zach, how are we doing on this Be Happy Sunday?
Great. You want to remind me what the score of the OU Texas game was? I know what it is. I just want to hear someone else say it.
Well, final score from the Cotton Bowl: Texas 30, Oklahoma 34. The Sooners get it done. Big time stuff from Dillon Gabriel in that game. Let's just
point to the sign.
Yeah,
Boomer Sooner.
That's right, baby.
And one more thing before we actually talk about the game, I just want to.
Oh, it feels good. Oh, it feels.
It feels good. You know, am I nervous about December? I might be. I might be a little bit. But you know what? That's in the future. And you know what? You know what's already happened this season? We beat Texas. We're 6-0. OU's coming. Had the bye week yesterday. And we're feeling good. We're feeling good about a 12-0 season coming up.
Yeah, it's looking up in Norman. Let's talk about this game for a little bit, right? So OU heads into the locker room up 20-17. Texas comes out and ties it, and then takes a lead with a late field goal in the fourth quarter with 1:17 to go. What were your thoughts with kind of the moments that had led to that point? Obviously, we got to talk about the goal line stand that prevented Texas from being able to cut into that lead earlier than they did. Obviously, chalk props up to Brent Venables for changing the way this defense kind of goes through their walkthroughs and their practices, because it's helped, hasn't it, Zach? I mean, we're seeing these guys wrap up. We're seeing guys run fit properly. We're not seeing these problems we had with Alex Grinch being the defensive coordinator. And, everybody wants to bash on last year, but the improvements are here. And it was very apparent on that goal line stand.
Yeah. The defense looked how the defense should look. I was very, very pleased with that goal line stand. I mean, 4 downs, 1 yard, and we keep them from scoring. That's insane. But I was even more impressed by Dillon Gabriel in that last drive with 1:17 to go. I mean, I'm thinking that whole game, since the second play of the game when we had the interception to kind of open our defensive, presence in that game, I kind of knew that we were going to win because of the defense. And at the end of the game, when Texas goes up with that late field goal, I'm thinking to myself, I'm a little devastated. I'm like, I don't know if DG is really built for this moment. I haven't seen him really do this yet. In a meaningful game against a top 3 in the country opponent. So I wasn't too sure what was going to happen, but he after those first couple passes, when he really just let it down the field pretty quickly, and he looked like a true game manager. I mean, he wasn't cracking under pressure. He didn't look nervous at all. And then especially at that last touchdown where he basically has 4 dudes coming and sacking him already, and he gets it off to Nick Anderson and just a perfect ball. I mean, that you couldn't have put it any other way. That's why Dillon Gabriel is currently second in the country for Heisman voting, right behind Michael Penix Jr. and ahead of Caleb Williams, which is another interesting thing that happened this weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So big time win for the Sooners. They get the victory, 34-30 in the Cotton Bowl, and remain perfect on the year. Texas loses its first Big 12 game and its first loss of the season, suffered at the hands of the Sooners. Other games that went on that Saturday: Georgia absolutely kicking the crap out of Kentucky, 51-13. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't see 51 points coming from Georgia against this Kentucky team. A lot of people are distraught when it comes to Mark Stoops, and losing to Missouri this week didn't help him at all. Were we wrong about Missouri? We'll have that conversation here in a minute. But I mean, Georgia looking a little bit more like last year's team against a very good Kentucky team. So I mean that's kind of scary. You want to talk about futures and where these teams could be at the end of the
Yeah.
year. Um, Michigan also put up 50 against Minnesota, 52-10. A big win there. Ohio State beats Maryland 37-17. Ohio State looking good against, at the time, an undefeated Maryland team. Florida State beat Virginia Tech 39-17. Looked very dominant. And then you had Louisville upset Notre Dame 33-20. I mean, did you get to watch any of this game? What were your takeaways from Notre Dame just collapsing after their loss to Ohio State?
Yeah, so I didn't get to watch much of that game, but what I do know is that Louisville is a very, very good team, and I would say Louisville is easily a top 10 team in the country right now. And I think people are underestimating Louisville, and I think they're going to continue to be, one of the best teams. Um, Notre Dame, on the other hand, it seems like they play up and down to their competition. Um, we kind of saw that this last weekend with their win against USC. I'm not sure on Notre Dame. Earlier in the season, I was kind of thinking Notre Dame is a possible playoff contender. Obviously, they're in that two-loss category now, so they're pretty much eliminated from the college football playoff. Um, I'm not sure how to feel about Notre Dame. I know that Sam Hartman's good. I know that Marcus Freeman is good. I'm not sure about. I know the O line is good, but I'm not sure about the rest of the team. Except for Estime.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely NFL material.
Yeah,
And of course, Louisville this week got a rude awakening as well, as they fall to an unranked Pittsburgh team 38-21. So that was kind of, I don't know if they're going to stay in that top 10 conversation for you after that, but I mean like I mean I guess give every team a mulligan, right? I mean
yeah.
it
I
seemed
still think they're going to end up in this season as a top 10 team talent wise. They definitely kind of shit the bed,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. But I mean, yeah, they're a top 10 team talent wise for sure, but they just didn't, this week just kind of a bad week for them. Alabama beat Texas A&M 26-20, not super impressive, but escaping the confines of Kyle Field. Never an easy task. UCLA upset Washington State 25-17. That was kind of a shocker. We thought that was a gimme when they were saying that they were giving UCLA 3 points at home. We thought that was absurd. But ended up being completely right, Zach. I don't know. I don't know what Vegas knew that we didn't think that we knew, but they got us.
yeah. Sorry, I was looking at those Louisville stats. I had to see exactly what happened.
Disaster. That's what happened.
He threw the ball 52 times is what happened.
Yeah, I don't. Don't you love when a quarterback becomes a head coach? Gotta throw it. Gotta throw it, brother.
52 times. That's what
Yeah.
happened. Two interceptions.
But what did you make of UCLA upsetting Washington State this last week? Of course, they fall to Oregon
Yeah.
State this week. But Dante Moore played absolutely terrible. Threw 3 picks, I think, last night. In their loss against the Beavers. But I mean that was kind of shocking for me. Um,
Washington State is just not good, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, which is wild to think about, but considering
Yeah.
how they started their season. North Carolina looking more and more like the real deal. They beat Syracuse 40-7 last week, and they got the job
Telling y'all.
done last night against
Been telling
Miami,
y'all.
41-31. So Florida State may be a little bit in trouble with North Carolina climbing the ladder. Oregon State on a 2-game win streak. They beat Cal last week, 52-40, and of course they beat UCLA last night. Um, with a score of 36-24. Um, Georgia, Ole Miss gets the win over Arkansas, 27-20. Um, I don't believe they had um, a game this week. I think they were off. Um, might be
Not
wrong
sure.
about that. I just don't. Maybe they're not ranked anymore. I feel like they should still be. So, I don't see them. They had a bye week.
Where did USC? Oh my god. Alright, I was looking at the new AP poll. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Um, so, anyways, and then Arkansas loses a close one at Alabama this week. A lot of close losses for Arkansas again this year, Zach. I mean, in a year where we thought, yes, this Arkansas team would kind of be middle of the road, they've lost their last two games by a combined uh, 10 points. I mean, just rough going for the Razorbacks. Um, what are your thoughts on how good Arkansas could be if things swung their way a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier in the season that I thought Arkansas was gonna be a team to watch out for in the SEC, but they ended up kinda having a mid-off, season, and then but yeah, barely losing to Alabama, and I think that speaks a lot of volumes on where Alabama's at as well. They're still unchanged at number 11 right now in the AP poll, but, um I think Arkansas is a good team, and I think they're gonna be a team to watch out for in the next couple of years in the SEC. I think they're gonna kinda show up and start competing with the likes of OU and Texas, in the SEC because Arkansas, I think, is a similar program, kind of a smaller scale, but, Arkansas has kind of always felt more like a Big 12 school than a SEC team to me, and now that OU and Texas are kinda going over there, I think Arkansas is gonna have a little bit more, I think they'll have a little bit more success in the future, especially just with how the program is developing year by year. I mean, I like what's happening in Arkansas a lot.
Yeah, I mean they definitely got that potential, like you said. So that's kind of helping them, and they're just kind of on the cusp of being, super super competitive. Back to when they were probably 10 years ago, I would think would be when they were
Yeah.
really competitive. Georgia Tech gets the upset win over Miami last week. God, well, I mean we discussed this off the air, but I mean there's 45 seconds left or something, and Mario Cristobal decides he wants to hand it off one more time. Ball squirts out. Georgia Tech takes that ball and drives the length of the field in about 30 seconds to take that lead as time expired. So Miami, their first loss of the season happens in the most Miami way possible. Um, I mean, many people are saying brain dead, fireable offense, terrible decision. What were you thinking? Yada yada.
Valid.
But I told you this was not the first time he had done this. I mean, in 2018 against Stanford, second and 53 seconds left, hands it off to C.J. Verdell, and then oopsie daisy, out comes the ball, and guess who's got it? It was the Stanford Cardinal, and they ended up winning that football game. Uh, so I mean, what are your takeaways? Georgia Tech not a good team, we know that, but I mean Miami just devastated.
Yeah. Cristobal definitely needs to be investigated for something. I don't care what it is. Just find an offense, investigate him, and get that man fired at this point. Um, I'm not liking the Cristobal experiment right now in Miami. I think it's time to find a new coach. I don't care how much you paid him. Buy that man out. He's obviously just not working out. He might be a good assistant. I don't know. I don't know much else. I mean, bonehead move. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Just like bonehead move to not kneel the ball there. There's no need to hand the ball off. It doesn't make any sense. He literally has his staff screaming at him to kneel the ball, and he's just waving them off and running another play, and that doesn't make any sense. It's like he's trying to run up the score or something. I don't know if he's what he's thinking. I don't know if he's trying to like there, and he's not even trying to run up the score with that because you're just running the ball and getting tackled so quickly, and then like the ball squirts out, like you said. But what's the point? There's no point in doing that. They're out of timeouts. All you have to do is kneel the ball. Yeah. I mean, it's like the man never played Madden.
Yeah, that's it's just baffling. It doesn't make much sense unless you know the history of he does that, and Miami fans learned he does that. I mean, Oregon fans like me had to learn the hard way, and so when I saw that play happen, I was disappointed but not surprised. Like it was like, hey, I mean and to me, someone who'd been laid awake at night for years wondering why he did it, that just solidified that it's just who he is. It wasn't some stupid mistake. That's just what he does. He just wants that extra carry. He wants the extra yardage. I don't know if there's a contract clause or it has X
What's
amount of
the
yards in a season. Like I
There's
don't know.
no reason for that. It doesn't
Yeah,
make any sense. Like why would he do that? Like, there's absolutely zero gain from doing that, and there's just only a risk that you're gonna fumble it.
Yeah,
What like,
Miami,
what's the
Miami minus three betters were absolutely
sick,
stunned. I mean,
sick.
yeah, just like, I mean,
Also, Cristobal needs to be fired because why is Miami only favored by 3 against Georgia Tech?
yeah, exactly, exactly. That was yeah. That I mean, they knew something. They knew he was gonna do something. There's the investigate him. There's collusion.
Investigate them.
Um,
There's something.
Finally, Missouri lost last week. LSU got them 49-39. But I wouldn't say bad loss for the Tigers. That's the thing is it's not a bad loss. I think it's a decent loss. It didn't hurt them super bad when it came to where they were at yesterday. They I mean they're not ranked, but then they get up and beat a ranked Kentucky team 38-21 yesterday, and Kentucky started that game up 14-0. They were trailing at halftime 17-14, and then just got blown out in the fourth quarter 18-0 Missouri. Um, I mean, do we owe anybody an apology? Because I don't feel like we do.
Nah, not yet.
I mean, they've got South Carolina next week. Um, I think that's probably a W for Missouri. As good as Spencer Rattler has looked at times, did not look very good these last couple games. Kind of came back to reality, and then they've got the gauntlet after South Carolina. They got Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and Arkansas to finish it out. So Missouri looking to probably, they trail Florida and Georgia in their division for the SEC. I don't think they're going to catch Georgia. They're going to have to beat them in 2 weeks in order to overtake them in the top of the SEC East. So, I mean, what do we think of the Tigers right now?
So, let's see, what are they, 6-1?
Yeah,
They're gonna finish 6-6. That's where I'm at on the Missouri Tigers.
I say 7-5.
I think they lose I think they lose every one of those games.
I mean, I would like to see it. I just don't know if South Carolina plays the way they can. Then yes, but if they don't, then I think that seven and
Yeah, it's
five
up
is
to South
probably
Carolina. 7-5
yeah,
is up to South Carolina.
yeah. So that's where I feel about that. What about Wyoming, Zach? I mean, Wyoming looking pretty good. They beat a ranked Fresno State team. We said they were going to win. The game was in Laramie. We were right.
Yep, we were right.
24-19. They get the Bulldogs, and then unfortunately they had the tall task of playing an undefeated Air Force team. And the thing is about this, Zach, is they were up 21-17 at half. Wyoming was, and then they just only scored 6 points in the fourth quarter, and that was it. And they lose by a touchdown, 34-27, and Air Force remains undefeated. Um, I just, I don't know what it is about Wyoming, Zach. They just can't seem to finish some of these games sometimes where they're ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Air Force is a good team, though.
Yeah,
It
no,
seems it's weird to kinda say that, but, I mean, Air Force is I mean, are they ranked in the top 25?
not yet. Oh, they 22. At 22, they are 22
22?
right now. Deservedly
Yeah,
so. I mean, they've got Navy this next week, and that's not going to be super easy. Colorado State's not pushover. Army, Hawaii, UNLV, that's probably a 3 game win streak, to be honest. And then Boise State at the end, maybe a little bit of a challenge there. But I mean, we could be looking at an Air Force team, Zach, that could be running the table here. I would not be surprised if Air Force doesn't lose a game.
yeah, I'm with you on that. We could see them slide into, like, the top 15 and
Yeah,
eventually top 10 like that.
I mean
They'll
it's
never make a they'll never make a New York 6, will they? Will they?
they're gonna
Or
need
New
some
Year's
help.
6, not New York,
Yeah,
but
they're gonna need some help.
yeah.
That's for sure.
We gonna see them? Are we gonna see them in a Sugar Bowl?
It I mean, it could happen. I mean, that's the thing is like it could definitely happen if they stay on this track, and I don't see anybody that could really dethrone them if they play the way they've been playing. I mean, obviously, getting off to a 0-14 start is never great. But again, we know
Yeah,
Wyoming
it's
is
how you
good.
finish.
Like we know Wyoming
How
is
you
good though.
finish.
Like
Yeah,
yeah,
Wyoming is good. Wyoming deserves to be a top 25 team. They should
yeah,
be, but they're not because of
yeah.
some of the things
I
they've
mean, 5-2. I mean, they're not.
big Wyoming fans over here.
Yeah, I mean, all because of Texas Tech, to be honest. But I mean, But I mean, their two
and
losses,
almost beating Texas.
their two losses are Texas and Air Force, an undefeated Air Force team and a Texas team that's probably going to be in the Big 12. I mean, rank these Cowboys. I mean,
T-
I'm telling you, if
number 8 Texas.
yeah, if they beat Boise State this next week, they might win the rest of their games because they've got Colorado State, UNLV, Hawaii, and winless Nevada to end. I mean, I mean,
Wyoming Air Force Sugar Bowl?
Wyoming and Air Force could be playing for the Mountain West Championship, but don't sleep on UNLV. Don't sleep on UNLV because they are second place right now in the Mountain West. They're 2-0 in conference, 5-1 overall. They had a bye week, I believe. Um, this week, I don't think they played anybody. Why did that happen? But I mean, the Mountain West is getting a little interesting.
It's definitely
Because
getting interesting. Air Force
because
is probably running the
because
table.
UNLV hasn't really beat anybody. Their wins are Vanderbilt, UTEP, Hawaii, Nevada, and Bryant. Those are their
Vanderbilt that
wins.
put up 20 on Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, their only loss is to number 2 Michigan, 35-7. So I mean, like we know they're not
It's
great, but
not
I mean,
50.
yeah, if they can beat Colorado State and if they can beat Fresno State back-to-back weeks, then UNLV might be the second best team in the Mountain West with Wyoming firmly behind them at 3. They'll play Wyoming on November 10th. That may be a huge game between UNLV and
That's going to be a
Wyoming.
great game. I hope.
Um,
Yeah, that's going to be a great game.
because last night Colorado State beat Boise State 31-30 with a 21-point fourth quarter. Um, and it was on a Hail Mary. So congratulations to Colorado State. 33
Yeah,
yard Hail Mary last night to beat Boise State. That puts them um, at 1-1 in conference, 3-3 overall.
hey,
So Colorado State not fantastic, but
not the
that's
only Hail Mary either.
nope. It was not. Um, And as far as other games go last week, Boston College beat Army 27-24. Mississippi State beat Western Michigan 41-28. Wisconsin got the win over Rutgers 24-13. Virginia beats William and Mary 27-13. Toledo beats UMass 41-24. NC State beats Marshall 48-41. That was a fantastic game. Um, UTSA beats Temple 49-34, and Buffalo beats Central Michigan 37-13. Northwestern gets the win over Howard by 3 because Northwestern is just that bad, 23 to
Yeah,
20. Iowa slips by Purdue 20 to 14. Clemson beat Wake Forest 17 to 12. Just a scraping by the Clemson Tigers. Navy beats North Texas 27-24. Louisiana Lafayette beats Texas State 34 to 30. Eastern Michigan the win over Ball State 24 to 10. Florida beats Vanderbilt 38-14. Northern Illinois beats Akron 55-14. And Ohio beats Kent State 42-17. Kansas gets the huge win over UCF 51 to 22. And UAB beats South Florida 56-35. UConn beat Rice 38 to 31 for their first win of the season. So a big win for the Huskies. Florida Atlantic and Casey Thompson get the win over Tulsa 20 to 17. And Colorado wins on a last second field goal 27-24 over Arizona State. South Alabama won their game 55 to 7 over ULM. Old Dominion 17-13 over Southern Miss. Texas Tech gets the win over Baylor 39-14. Iowa State the win over TCU 27-14. And Utah State the win over Colorado State 44-24. And Boise State the win over San Jose State 35-27. And Oklahoma State gets the win over Kansas State 29-21. Nebraska over Illinois 20 to 7. That kind of wraps up last week's games. This week, like I said, big time game between Oregon and Washington. Washington gets the win 36-33. Oregon misses a last second field goal to send it into overtime. What were your takeaways from this game out in Seattle?
Um, I thought both teams looked like top. Honestly, both teams looked like top 5 teams. I think that Washington probably deserves to be number 3. They ended up at number 5. And I think that Oregon, should be number 5, um, or number 6. It's tough for me because I think that both teams played great games, and I think that at the end of the day, it really was gonna come down to Washington getting lucky on Oregon missing a field goal because honestly, it's tough to tell who wins that game in overtime. And, obviously, I feel very bad for you as an Oregon fan because you had to miss, what would have been a fantastic overtime period, on a field goal missed opportunity.
In his
And,
range and
obviously,
in the
I saw
center of
your
the
call.
field.
I know. It was in range, center of the field, should have gone in. And I watched your call of it, and that you knew instantly as soon as it came off the thing, you went, "He hooked it. He
Yeah,
hooked it."
yeah, hooked it.
And he did. He did. He hooked it just barely to the right. Um, man, that's a terrible way to go, but I'll say this, Oregon played fantastic. Bo Nix is still a Heisman candidate. Michael Penix Jr. solidified himself as the Heisman front runner. Um, and he's gonna win that Heisman if they don't lose another game, and that's just how it's gonna go. So, if they don't lose another game, Michael Penix Jr. is the Heisman. And you know what? If they do lose a game and OU doesn't, Dylan Gabriel's the Heisman. We'll talk about that later. But um, I think that Oregon very much has an opportunity to get that game back in December.
Yeah, I mean, this is it came down to a couple decisions by Dan Lanning, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you go for it on fourth and goal before the half, knowing that you get the ball out at halftime, which I didn't really have a problem with. It just sucks that that first drive out of the half was a punt. That's what you didn't want
yeah,
if you were gonna go for it on that fourth and goal. There didn't really have an issue with that at that point. Sucked, but I just with the amount of time that was left, fourth and three, we decided to go for it, and it's just a terrible pass by Bo Nix. It just wasn't. It wasn't close to the intended target. I mean, okay, I can take it. It was close, but it just was uncatchable. There was no way anybody was gonna
yeah,
get to it. Um, Nowhere to put it. I didn't really like them rolling to that side of the field towards the near side. I thought they should have tried to go towards the outside of the field since they were on that hash. I thought they weren't really giving themselves a lot of room for those out routes that he was trying to hit, and they were both outposts to the outside. Um, I mean, I would have liked to see RPO maybe, but I don't know if they would have made it. I mean, the run game. I mean, it just wasn't. Bucky Irving was fantastic. Bucky Irving has changed
yeah,
this offense completely on its head. One of the best transfers in the country. A guy that slips about 2 tackles every time he touches the ball, um, which is sixth in the FBS at 21% of tackles are slipped when they're geared towards Bucky. But I just don't think he would have probably picked it up either. It was just um, in hindsight, it's like yeah, we gave him a short field, and of course the first play they run is a 20-yard pass to their wide receiver to set him up inside the red zone. And I was like, well, this is probably your ball game. But luckily, I say luckily, the defense just allowed them to kind of score there, and they didn't, but it just kind of seemed that way because it was like a 4-play drive, and you had enough time to get into field goal range, which again is not an L. I mean that is exactly what you want, a chance to tie or win the game. But I didn't like were the calls leading up to that, right? You had two
yeah,
passes from Bo Nix where he could have at least, I mean, at least pick up 3 or 4 more yards, right? Like you could have at least tried. I mean, it wasn't, but instead they're two incomplete passes, both of them just kind of thrown away because he was, trying to preserve some clock. But again, you have it inside your kicker's field goal range. He's already hit from 43, or sorry, from 45. So hitting from 43 shouldn't be a problem. It's right down Main Street. I mean, as long as everything is just lined up perfectly, he's got the leg to do it. Um, did I like our chances in overtime? I wouldn't say I loved them, but the thing is I think both of those teams played good enough to win that ball game. And people will be like, "Oh, I hate when it comes down to the kicker." I do. I hate when it comes down to the kicker, but you have one job, kick it through the uprights. I don't
yep,
blame Camden Lewis for the loss because you don't know how things would have shaken out in overtime. And then if we would have lost in overtime, the question still would have been, If you don't go for it on that 4th and 3, are you even having to kick that field goal to win it? So I don't think that was really a win-win. It was just a lose-lose situation if we would have lost that game any way, shape, or form because of how many chances Dan Lanning took. But to your credit, you were like, hey, Dan Lanning's got balls, and that man will go for
Yeah,
it, and he goes for it as if he is playing Madden. And I kind of appreciate it, to be honest. I kind of do.
yeah, he's confident in his team, and that's something I like to see. I like to see that he thinks, even if we don't get this 4th and 3, I still think that we're gonna go out there and get the ball back on defense, and we're gonna have a chance to win this game. And you know what? He was right. You had a chance to win that game, and the problem was Bo Nix not making the correct plays at times, not going fighting for the extra yardage, and like you said, um, you got to kick it through the uprights. And, you can't blame Dan Lanning for that. He had the chance to win the game. He put his team in a position to possibly win the game in overtime against one of the best teams in the country. And Camden Lewis, he fell through. I mean, he simple and plain, he didn't show up. And there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, and we'll see what the severity of Penix's injury is. He definitely looked a little bothered there on that last drive for
Yeah.
them, and I think that's why on that RPO on that 4th and goal he didn't take it himself. Where I think he would have walked in. I mean, the thing is that goal line stand we had was fantastic. I mean, 6.5 minutes
Yeah.
to go in a goal line stand in that situation in that environment, fantastic. And I didn't think that we had it won at that point, but I thought that was a huge stop. And obviously, we end up having to punt. Or sorry, not having. That was when we ended up going for it on that 4th and 3 and not making it. I mean, we were literally 2 first downs away, Zach, from being able to clock it. I mean, we really were. We, we
Yeah.
were we were 2 first downs away from just running that clock out and being able to escape Seattle with a victory. And here's where I have a problem here. Everybody loves the way Washington looks right now, and I don't have a problem with that because they deserve all the credit that they're getting. But this team is going to lose a game. Washington is going to lose a game before the Pac-12 championship. It just depends on who it is. They've
I
got
don't think that happens.
they've got such a tough schedule, Zach, and the way
Oregon's the
that
best team on that schedule.
and the way they play, Arizona State's a win. I'll give you that. Stanford's a win. I'll give you those two. But then you've got USC, Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State to end the season. USC probably a win. I mean it's gonna be a duel because here's the thing about Washington. What I saw on Saturday was this. Their defense is not that great. It's not that great.
It doesn't need to
It's
be.
it's okay. But it's not people were like, "Oh, that defense is really good." It's not really really good. It's good enough to win you games. It's good enough to win you games if Michael Penix plays like a Heisman Trophy candidate. If Michael Penix has an off
Michael
game,
Penix is gonna score
there's
60 on Alex Grinch.
he should. That's what I'm saying. He should. I'm not worried about that. The Oregon State game is the one I'm circling. That's the one I'm circling.
That's the one I would circle,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I wouldn't sleep on Washington State either. Apple Cup is a rivalry game, and we know what Washington State is capable of, regardless of how bad they got beat this week. Which it's bad. I mean, losing to Arizona 44-6 is not great. It was shocking. It was stunning. It was everything. It was a nightmare. If you're a Cougars fan, it was a nightmare.
Yeah,
And
Klay
that was
Thompson is rolling in his grave.
yeah. It is bad. Like it was bad. So I mean, people are like, oh well, Washington State is ass. Like no, that's not what happened. I think Washington State is still a competitive team in this conference. I think right now we're seeing this conference eat itself, which sucks
Yeah,
because last 2 weeks ago when we talked, it was this is one of these conferences that could be the second best conference in the country, and we're seeing itself eat itself, and that's what's gonna drop it below the likes of the Big Ten and the likes of even possibly the Big 12, with the way that everything is kind of shaking out. Because believe it or not, Zach, Oklahoma State's got a chance here to go to the Big 12 championship game. Still, they've got a path, and 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 that's saying something. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like they shouldn't, but they do. They're 2-1 in conference.
you're drinking
And
Kool-Aid.
no, 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 no. Listen, 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 listen. I'm just saying one of the worst teams in the conference still has a chance to be in the title game. So doesn't that mean your conference is still strong? You know what I'm saying? Like this is still a good conference because you're having teams like think about this. Oklahoma State is the third best team in the conference right now. Right now. They're ranked third. It goes Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, then Texas. That's how the rankings are right now.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm not saying it's gonna
But
stay like that. I'm not
let
saying it's
let's
gonna
be
stay
let's be
like that.
realistic here. So at the end of the season, that those rankings are gonna read Oklahoma, Texas,
Texas, yes, probably, and probably Oklahoma
probably
State.
Kansas State. No, probably
Well,
Kansas State.
probably Kansas State. Well, I mean, okay, okay. So let's look at Oklahoma State's schedule,
Then
right?
probably Iowa State, and then maybe Oklahoma State.
So Oklahoma State has West Virginia next week, and then
Yeah,
they've got Cincinnati. They're winnable games. I mean, they're winnable games.
winnable.
If I mean, you just beat both the Kansas schools, so I would say winnable games, right? Depending on how
Yeah,
good
sure.
Alan Bowman plays, winnable games. OU's a loss. Take that for what it
Yeah,
is. So that puts
yeah. And
them.
if it's not, then I'll scream.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. So that would put them at 4-2 in conference. UCF is a win, 5-2. Houston is a win, 6-2, and BYU should be a win, 7-2 in conference. Is what we're looking at for Oklahoma State. Best case scenario, right? Worst case scenario, they probably lose to West Virginia, OU, and BYU. Let's say those are the three teams either BYU or Cincinnati. One of those teams they will lose to if they don't play well.
my problem is, I think you're assuming that Texas is going to lose another game.
And the thing is I am.
And who would that be
I
against?
stated this, and I think Kansas State's gonna get them. If
You think
Kansas
Kansas
State
State's going to get Texas?
if
That's
can
probably the best
if if
chance.
Kansas State
But if
doesn't get
Kansas
them,
State gets them, then Kansas State gets them that championship.
yeah. If Kansas State doesn't beat them, the second best chance you have of them losing is Texas Tech at the end of the year.
Ooh, wouldn't that be
Wouldn't that be
fun?
nice though? I mean, wouldn't that be nice though? I mean, like and the thing is, it'd be really nice if both of them beat them. It'd be nice to lose at Kansas State and to lose at Texas Tech.
So what's the path of Texas Tech getting to the championship?
Texas Tech.
And
Oh, I,
us just
I'll
eating our words.
yeah. Let's look at these Red Raiders. Right, they're they're floating out here. They're having a good time. They lost to Kansas State by 17 this last week. They've got BYU. That should be a win. TCU probably going to be a battle. Kansas going to be a battle. UCF, that's a win, and then Texas. So you're going to have to beat Kansas to put
Yeah.
yourself in a position to, if you beat Texas, be that team that probably is fighting for a chance here in conference. But you wouldn't be in the title game because Oklahoma State will have beaten West Virginia. Texas Tech lost to West Virginia. So it'll depend on if
Well,
Oklahoma
we'll
State can
see.
beat West Virginia and then end up, because as I said, they're gonna lose to OU. But if they win out, I mean but they got a path. I mean these teams have a path. Um, Kansas still technically has a path. I mean they're right
Yeah.
now we're at the point where these next 2 weeks are vital for all of these teams. And
Yeah.
after these
I
next
mean, I
two,
still think Kansas definitely is
yeah,
a threat.
after these next two,
I'm worried about Kansas.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I would be thinking about that. Um, Other games over this weekend, Michigan beat Indiana 52-7. I mean, Michigan just looks like just rolling people.
Yeah,
Um,
Indiana starts out 7-0, everybody freaks out, then
yeah,
Michigan
yeah,
ends up going 52-7. That's just
yeah,
how great
yeah,
teams handle
yeah, yeah,
business.
yeah. Um, let's talk about this Notre Dame game, right? Notre Dame beats USC
Yeah,
48-20.
it
Um,
was beautiful.
it was glorious. It was what it almost was what it could have been. If Notre Dame had beaten Ohio State and Louisville, this would have been probably you know the win that catapults Notre Dame into the 4 spot for college football
Yeah,
playoff, and Sam Hartman's probably looking at an automatic trip to New York. Um, I mean, what
but now
was
they're
I
number
mean,
15.
yeah. So they're getting there. They are getting there. Um,
But it also shot USC down to number 18, so I think that says a lot about USC that people kind of already knew that the second they lose, they're gonna slide down those rankings real quick
but
because
Lincoln
they were
Riley
just
said they
not
were
the team that we
close,
knew they
though.
were.
Lincoln Riley
But
still
Lincoln
said they were
Riley said they
close
were
last
close.
night.
They're just a couple of
Couple
mistakes
bad stuff,
away.
just a couple.
A couple of mistakes away, couple of defensive coordinator changes away, couple of defensive recruiting changes away, couple of defensive scheme changes away, couple of defensive lineup changes away. Just a bunch of things defensive related that have to be fixed over there because that's what happens when Lincoln Riley is in charge of your football program. You don't have a defense. So until that changes, USC is not winning any of these big games. They're going to lose to Washington. And do they have Oregon? They're going to lose to Oregon. I
Yep,
mean,
at Oregon.
Yeah.
Um,
They're gonna lose to both those teams, and USC is gonna finish with probably a 9-3 record, maybe 8-4, like I was saying at the beginning of the season.
yeah, I mean, and just to kind of recap some of these other games as well, Zach. Utah still no Cam Rising all season. They get another win over Cal,
Yeah,
34-14. Will we see him at all this season? I mean, they've
I hope so.
I mean, they've got some big games coming up. I would really like to see them at full strength for those because if they're
E
5-1 right now without him, think about how good they would be
exactly.
with him, and that's kind of scary for me as an Oregon Ducks fan and as a Pac-12 member for now.
That's
I
and that's
mean,
a game to circle for Washington too, especially if Cam Rising's
yeah,
available for that game,
yeah.
right?
I mean, yeah,
Because if Cam Rising's available for that game, Utah all of a sudden becomes a threat in the Pac-12 to probably get in that championship.
that's what I'm
Because
saying.
honestly, with Cam Rising, they probably beat either Oregon or Washington. I don't know
Yep,
which one, but they
yep.
probably beat one of them. So that's gonna be fun. I hope he comes back because if he doesn't, then it's not a worry.
Yeah, not I would say against those, no. I think this team is a team that's good enough to beat the lesser competition. They got USC next week. So it'll be Utah
Yeah,
and USC, and if he's not back for that, I mean I think USC probably wins that game. I mean Utah just doesn't have the firepower offensively without Cam Rising to stay in that. The defense is good. I will give Utah that. They're probably the best defensive team in the conference. I don't think I can say otherwise. I mean, you hold UCLA to 14 points. I mean, you hold Florida to 24 points, which Florida's been kind of up and down. They weren't as bad as we thought they were going to be, but starting off the way they did, you were like, "Oh God." I mean,
yeah,
but you have USC and Oregon back to back for Utah. So I mean, that's these next 2 weeks, like I said, are huge for them in their quest of being part of that conversation. And it starts with beating USC next week. If they don't beat them, I don't see them beating Oregon unless Cam Rising decides this is the time I'm coming out and kind of play. And then in that case, I'm sitting here going, well, here comes loss number two. Because I mean,
yeah.
after this week, I mean, it's I just don't know where we're at. I mean, look, I'll say it again. Where we're at right now, Oregon could have very much as won that game as much as Washington, so I still have them kind of on even playing fields. I mean, is
I do
I
too,
mean I
and
mean that's
I think the
it,
voters do too.
so
I mean,
so
they're number 9.
yeah, so
Like,
I think that if there was going to be a third team in the conversation, it's not USC anymore. It's got to be Utah. I don't see Oregon State being the team. I don't see Washington State being the team. They've had their chances this season. It hasn't happened. I know
yeah,
USC technically hasn't lost a conference game yet because Notre Dame's obviously not in the Pac-12. But as far as that conversation goes, I think it's over. I think people know that the top three teams in this conference are Washington, Oregon, and Utah right now.
yeah, I agree
So
with you. I think that's my thing about Utah. They're number 14 right now. They have Cam Rising. They're definitely a top 10 team, and then we're really talking about the Pac-12 being a power conference. But I mean, Oregon right now sitting at number 9, right behind Texas. A couple more wins, Oregon's going to slide back into that 8, 7, 6 spot.
hmm
Um,
and Penn
you
State's
know,
probably
I
going to lose this weekend. So you
Yeah, I
got
mean,
to, I mean,
let's talk about this poll for a second. I mean, this poll is kind of interesting when
yeah,
you take a look at it,
we can
right?
take a gander.
So you got obviously you got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio
hmm
State number 1, 2, 3. No problem with that at all. And then you got Florida State number 4. I still think Florida State's a little overrated, but they deserve number 4 right now,
Yeah,
I guess.
they
In
haven't
my
done
opinion,
anything. Yeah,
yeah, in my opinion, they're more of a number 7, 8, 9 team, and I
agreed.
think OU or Washington is number 4. Probably Washington.
Yeah,
But Washington's number 5 right now. They moved up 2 spots, and then they kinda jumped over OU and Penn State.
mm,
So that was interesting. So you got OU at number 6, Penn State at number 7. I don't really have too many problems with OU at number 6 right now,
no,
aside from I don't think Florida State should be there. I think, they should move down below that.
yeah, but like you
But,
said, they
I
haven't done
mean,
anything to move them yet. So
yeah, so, like, OU number 6 is fine by me. Texas number 8, that kinda makes sense with the Oregon loss. And then Oregon at number 9, so that's fun, and then number 10, you got North Carolina, and I think that's interesting because they just jumped Alabama and Ole Miss, right?
yeah,
So, um,
Oregon State
I
went up
think we're
three
really looking
spots
at
from 15 to 12.
yeah, and that's interesting because we're really talking about Oregon's in the year of our Lord 2023, we're talking about Oregon State jumping over Alabama next week. Um,
Possible.
So that's gonna be fun. Um, and then let's see, Ole Miss, they had a bye. They stay at number 13. Utah, and then Utah number 14 at moving up 2 spots. That's what's interesting about this is that Utah is still the number 14 team without Cam
That's what I'm
Rising.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Like they
So
could, yeah.
that's so dangerous.
It
That's
is.
so
It
dangerous
is. I
for
don't
the
like it.
Pac-12. I mean, it's if he comes back, then it's all of a sudden like you're talking about Oregon and Washington really having to worry about Utah. Um, and Utah, I mean, they Utah's sitting just as pretty as Oregon right now without Cam Rising. So
Hmm.
that's really kind of terrifying. And then Notre Dame slides up 6 spots to number 15. No surprises there. Duke football school number 16. That's fun. Tennessee's number 17. That's really fun. No problem. No problem with Tennessee at number 17. I would probably put them above Duke and Notre Dame right now, but that's just me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so and then what's beautiful about this is we have sliding down 8 spots, USC at number 18.
Um,
18. That's rough. I'm pretty sure OU was ranked number 18 in the preseason poll, so that hurts, huh? Um, that's awesome. And LSU number 19, they move up 3 spots after that win against who was it? Auburn.
yep.
So that's fun.
48 to
Missouri,
18. Yep.
yeah, that's a good win. Um, Missouri at number 20, whatever. We're not going to say anything about that yet because I still think we're right. And I think that we were correct that Missouri's either finishing 6-6 or 7-5. You're probably right at 7-5, but we'll see. Louisville at number 21, sliding down 7 spots after that. Horrible,
Horrible
horrible
loss
loss
to
against
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
My thing is, I still think Louisville's a great team, and I think that they're still a team to watch out for. But especially in the ACC. So we'll see what happens there. They had a terrible loss and just a terrible game.
Yeah.
Throwing the ball 52 times, you're just something's off. Maybe they were all sick. They had some food poisoning or something. They were a little hungover. I don't know what was going on with the boys, but Louisville messed up. We talked about Air Force. They're sitting at number 22. They look good. They're a lot. They're at 20. They're at a comfortable 22 at over
Yeah.
100 points ahead of number 23 Tulane, who I'm always a fan of Tulane.
Yeah.
No problems there. Iowa, number 24, rounding it out. Number 25, UCLA. The 4-2 conference record down 7 spots after losing to Oregon
Oregon
State,
State.
36-24. Oregon State's definitely a team that I wanted to highlight in this poll at number 12. They are another team that we have to look out for. Kind of looking into the Pac-12. So with the rise of Oregon State and with the possible Cam Rising, of Utah, that's going to be interesting. The
Yeah.
Pac-12
Um.
championship game. We don't know. What if
Yeah.
what if we see a Pac-12
Hey,
championship
Oregon
game? It's
State and Utah.
Oregon State and Utah. I mean, like
It's
that's possible.
possible. It's possible. I hate that
Like,
that's
how fun would that
possible.
be?
I hate that that's
Yeah,
possible. Don't talk to me about that. Let me get this before we head into this upcoming week's games. Let me ask you this
yeah.
last question here. What was your take from the Kansas State Texas Tech game? Because both of those teams are playing with backup quarterbacks. Um, no Taylor Shuck.
You're
Freshman
crapping out on me here a little bit.
freshman quarterback for Kansas State has 5 rushing
There you go.
touchdowns on the day. Um, just kind of a wild weekend for those two schools. What was I mean, are these teams that you feel like will keep these changes moving forward? Is that what we're seeing here with Kansas State, or is this just because Will Howard's just not healthy? I mean, it
I
seemed
don't
like they
know.
pulled him and put in Avery Johnson, who goes 8 of 9, 77 yards, no touchdowns through the air, but Avery Johnson had 13 carries for 5 touchdowns on the ground. So Kansas State's backup quarterback gets 5 rushing touchdowns. No Tyler Shuck, like I said, it was Jake Strong and Bethran Morton, the two quarterbacks for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They combine for 30 of 49 for about 300 yards, and one touchdown and three picks. So not great for Texas Tech. But as far as Kansas State goes, Zach, is Avery Johnson now the guy?
I mean, I would think so. I mean, it's hard to argue with 13 carries, 5 touchdowns on the ground from your backup quarterback. 8 of 9 an efficient 77 yards. I mean, I don't have a problem with him being the guy. Um, I guess he's the guy. So we'll see it moving forward. I mean, it's gonna be tough to see what happens, when everyone's healthy in that quarterback room, but I think that for now, yeah, he's the guy. You gotta put him as the guy.
I mean, I don't have a problem. Um, so let's jump into this week's games. Got a pretty big slate to go through. Let's start out with this one, Zach. Penn State, Ohio State in Columbus, 11 a.m. kick here Central Time on Fox. Give me your thoughts here. Is this Ohio all the way, or is Penn State for real this year?
We'll see. I'm probably taking Ohio State in this one, but I think it'll be close. I think Penn State's not gonna drop off too far in the rankings after a loss, but I need them to stop being on OU's ass in the rankings. But, I mean, if they beat Ohio State, that'll shake things up a little bit. I like that. I like Penn State being a big threat, after a couple years where we weren't too sure about Penn State after having a couple of good years, but, James Franklin's really turning that team around. I love what I love what he's done. Um, and I do think that they look really good this year. I just think Ohio State's probably the better team, but we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Penn State's not Maryland. I mean, I'll give them that. So, I'm fully confident that Penn State could win this game, but I would probably put money on Ohio State.
Yeah, I it's hard for me to sit here and say that Ohio State's not supposed to be favored in this because I feel like it's just so blatantly obvious. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, I like Penn State. I like what they bring to the table. I just think every year we look at this matchup and Ohio State just ends up just tearing Penn State apart these last couple years. 4.5 point favorites Ohio State is right now. I think I would take that. Um, without even probably thinking about it, to be honest.
I mean,
Um,
and it's in Columbus. Like, I mean, it's probably in Columbus. Probably gonna land a probably ball's gonna bounce Ohio State's way.
yeah, I would assume so. It looks that way for sure. Um, yeah, I like that. I think that's a good analysis. I think that we're looking at an Ohio State team that's probably going to lose to Michigan, and that's probably going to be their only loss, like you said at the beginning of the year. I think that's
Yeah,
probably what we're looking at. At the beginning of the year, I didn't think that because I didn't really believe in J.J. McCarthy and Michigan's offense. But when you're averaging like 45 points a game through this many games, I guess I need to bite my tongue on that. What defenses they've been against kind of matters, but I mean, like, I think that the minute that they have some resistance, I think they'll still show that they're just the better team. And I don't really think Kyle McCord's that is good enough to lead Ohio State past Michigan at this point, from what I've seen. So I think it'll
yeah,
be a good game. I think it's a good game to start the Saturday off with. If you're going to watch football all day, I would definitely keep an eye on that one. Starting at the same time, though, Zach, is your Oklahoma Sooners. They are hosting, or sorry, they're hosting UCF. Um, what's your final score prediction here, with the Sooners looking like they are big time favorites here on the old DraftKings? They're uh, looking like, let's see, where is it at? Looking like 18-point favorites right now.
oh yeah. Slide that line to 28.5, and I'd still take that.
Yeah, I mean that's
Um,
yeah.
OU, yeah, go ahead and put that as a lock of the week for me already.
All
You
right.
can put that down because here's my thing. It's going to be every week, but my thing is UCF is not that good. OU's coming off a bye week that I think, based off Danny Stutzman interviews, is a bye week where they have done just as much work as they would in the other week. Um, Based off interviews I've seen, especially post Texas, and seeing a little bit more of Brent Venables getting exposed to him a little bit more from the media, giving a lot more attention. It seems that he's got those guys working really, really, really well every week, preparing the same way no matter what. Danny Stutzman said that they did the exact same routine for Arkansas State that they did for Texas. And that's the sign of a good program when you're consistent every week no matter what. So I'm confident that they're going to come into this week stronger than they were against Texas. I'm thinking they're probably going to drop about 56 to 63 on UCF. And my final score prediction would probably be OU 63, UCF 21.
I like it. I like it. I'm thinking more
And I think
56-17 ish.
14 and I think 14 of those points coming against OU's second unit.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see some second unit time in that game, for sure. At least we should. We should. Another 11 a.m. kick. I mean, I'll be having probably to flip through some channels here. Air Force and Navy. Air Force a 10-point favorite over Navy, but they're gonna have to travel to Annapolis. Um, I mean, I like Air Force, but is 10 too much, or you think that they take care of business against the midshipmen and win by 10 or more?
Uh, they should win by 10 or more. If they don't, then we're definitely rethinking our whole analysis that we did earlier. I just they look like a top 15 team at the end of the season. So I expect them to play like that against the midshipmen.
Arkansas, Mississippi State on ESPN to start the day off. This one's in Fayetteville. I think this one's going to be one of the better games to watch because I think these teams are kind of in the same position right now. It'd be interesting to see what this line is. It looks like the line on this one for Arkansas and Mississippi State. Where are we at here, baby? Where are you at? I'm not seeing it on here. Why would it not be on here? Let's see what ESPN does. Not seeing a spread on this one, Zach. Can you find one for me? I don't have a spread for Arkansas and Mississippi State.
I'm seeing a spread.
Oh, it's all the way at the bottom. This one says it's at 6 p.m., but ESPN says it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. That must have changed. Arkansas 7-point favorite over Mississippi State.
Put that in for me. Also, I would take
Okay.
Arkansas. I think Arkansas is a like. I mean, I still think I'm going to disagree with you there. That I think they're in the same level as Mississippi State. I think Arkansas is a step above them. Um, No fault of Mississippi State. Obviously they like tragically lost their coach, and kind of their program got derailed for a minute. So I just think they're kind of still recovering from that. And I think that Mississippi State's got a couple years before they kind of revitalize their program a little bit more. So I think that Arkansas should win this game, and I think this is going to be a little bit of a statement game for Arkansas. Even I think I would say that this game is not going to be close, and I think that Arkansas is going to win this by at least 14, probably 17 points.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think that 7-point line is pretty accurate just because I feel like Arkansas plays up and down to their competition. At
Yeah.
least that's what the schedule would probably tell you. Um, so I particularly, I would love for Arkansas to win by 17 or more. They have the potential, like you said, to do that. We'll see how they play. That one right now is 11 a.m. kickoff. On the Big Ten Network, it's Indiana and Rutgers. I don't have any desire to watch this game at all. I would probably rather watch paint dry. Um,
Yeah.
I have both these teams are just terrible. I wouldn't even know who to even root for because they're just so terrible. Um,
Indiana
I
probably.
yeah, Indiana probably. Yeah, you're probably right. Um,
I mean, they looked, terrible against Michigan, but there was a moment where we were like, "Hey, Indiana," so
hey, they scored. Um,
so, I don't know. I don't know. That's definitely one that I would stay away from.
Yeah, no spread listed. I'm sure because the spread is probably like, half a point or something. I can't imagine what the spread is between uh those two teams, but I'm sure it's not
Remember when
fantastic.
Indiana was good for a minute,
Yeah, that was a good time. That was a good time. Good times.
like a couple years ago when they were all right?
Yeah, when Michael Penix was there. um,
Yeah,
yeah, those times. Yeah.
those times.
Boston College at Georgia Tech. Um, doesn't really do anything for me. Georgia
Yeah,
Tech a five
not
point
getting my
favorite
feathers ruffled at all.
against the Eagles. You think that line's probably right? Five in favor of the Yellow Jackets.
Sure, I don't know nothing about these
Yeah,
teams.
I
Honestly,
just
this team
yeah
is nothing. This is
yeah.
nothing to me.
Cincinnati a 1 point favorite over Baylor. I kind of
That's
like
interesting.
Baylor.
I
Um,
kind of like Baylor in
I
that.
kind
Yeah,
I kind of I kind of like Baylor.
I
Um,
kind of like Baylor there.
yeah, that's on the road in the Nippert.
Hey, you know what? Throw it down for me. I like Baylor.
Throwing it down. That's three. You got three left. So Baylor plus the one against Cincinnati is Zach's third
Oh
pick.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. If they lose, it'll be by half a point. Here
yeah.
we go.
Yeah. Memphis versus UAB. Memphis 4.5 point favorites over the Blazers. I like that line. I think Memphis probably takes care of business. The Blazers are bad. Um, Western Michigan, Ohio. Does that do anything for you? Ohio
No.
15.5 point favorites over the Broncos. Probably should be. Ohio, of course, beat Iowa State earlier this year, so we know they're okay. Um, Probably a bowl team. Um,
Yeah.
any anything to add to that? I highly doubt, but
No, that's
yeah, that's that.
talking about some cornfield teams.
Yeah. Washington State and Oregon. This one's at Autzen Stadium. Um,
Oregon
lot,
should win by 50.
Lots of eyes on this. Oregon 19 point favorites. At
How you
home.
feel about that?
I like Washington State plus the points. Um, I think this is going to be a game that I'm going to be like this in the fourth quarter, like hoping that we pull it out. I think it's coming off a very emotional loss. We don't play well. It's just historically. If Dan Lanning can get those guys up to destroy Washington State, I'll be very impressed with the rebound. But I like Washington State plus the points here. Your thoughts?
Spread was 19.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Washington State plus the points. I just think that's a tough game to recover from. Missed kick and everything. Yeah, it's not like they played bad or anything. They were still playing like a
No,
fantastic team.
no,
It's
no.
emotional loss. So I
Yeah,
think
just
that
emotionally draining.
if Dan Lanning can rally the guys and they win by 21 points, I'd be impressed.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
but yeah, I think you're right. Washington State's also coming off some games where they had some terrible games.
yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Washington State, but I do think that they should come into this game looking to make a statement. So I'd be worried if I was an Oregon fan.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be sweating it whether I like it or not. I think a 14 point win is
Yeah,
probably where we're at. 10 to 14, I think, is probably where we're gonna be sitting at the end of that. 17 is
that's tough.
probably the max I would go. I think 17 is probably the biggest we would win that game by. Um, so I think you're pretty safe with your plus 19 if you take that now. Obviously, this line will change as the week goes on, but right now these
Yeah,
are what we've got.
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. Tennessee at Alabama. This one's probably going to be a good game. I don't
I
think
like Tennessee.
I don't think I would have said that early. Alabama 9.5 point favorites here. Um, at their house. Tennessee has been up and down this year, Zach. They've kind of played up and down to competition. They lost some games that, I mean, that Florida game is really stunning still to me that they just got walloped the way they did down there in the swamp. But they've rebounded nicely. They won against Texas Tech, got that win under their belt. Um, they look like a team that could very well get back on track. Um, you know, I think that this is probably going to dictate whether or not their season is going to be worth, uh, you know, fighting for as far as playoff potential and stuff. Because again, we're talking about just a one-loss team here. You beat Alabama this week, and you beat Missouri and Georgia to end the season. That's your path to the CFP. If you're Tennessee.
Yeah,
So it starts this weekend with Alabama, And you like the Volunteers this weekend?
I like Tennessee. I'm riding with my boy Josh. He carried me to a natty, so I think I'm gonna ride with him to against Alabama. Now, the only problem I have with this is Nick Saban losing to Tennessee 2 years in a row. How do we feel about that? Not good. Um, Nick Saban shouldn't lose this game, but I think he will because I just think Tennessee is going to look to be making a statement, like you said. There's still a team to look out for in the SEC. I like Tennessee here. Not necessarily Tennessee to win, but Tennessee to cover 9.5. I'll take that.
All right. You want to put that as number 4?
I'll put that down. That's
Okay.
a big risk
Okay.
one. I'll put that
Okay.
down.
Okay. Um, South Carolina, Missouri. Missouri 6-point favorites at home against the Game Chickens. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, this is one where $53 a ticket might be worth heading to Columbia to go see.
we going?
Yeah, I mean, hey, 2:30 kick. You get there Friday night. You're cooking. Um, it's a possibility. It's a possibility here
I
because
like I like the Gamecocks here.
yeah, I like the Gamecocks. I mean, six is quite the line.
I
Um,
like that enough to make it a lock of the week
there's number.
because
All right, explain.
Because here's my thing, Missouri's garbage, and I'm confident enough in our conversation earlier that we had about Missouri finishing with either 1 more win or 0 more wins in this season. And I'm pretty confident that they're not gonna win another game. I think South Carolina should dog walk Missouri. I think that Spencer Rattler is
Oh,
going to eliminate that secondary. I think Spencer Rattler is looking to make a statement. He's worried about his draft stock right now because it's definitely slipping. He was kinda up there in the beginning of the season. Now it's looking like, "Hey, I might go undrafted. I might have a Stetson Bennett kinda career. We don't know what's gonna happen." So I need Spencer Rattler to kinda step it up, and I think this is the game that he looks to do that because Missouri are fraudulent. They're fraudulent. All right. Their only notable win was on a 61-yard field goal. Shout out their kicker. But Missouri is fraudulent. We are still correct. We're still correct about this team. They're gonna finish 6-6. Maybe they finish 7-5. But I'm willing to bet on that 6-6 with my lock of the week.
all right, all right. I like it. I like the courage of your convictions. Tulane 19-point favorites against North Texas. Tulane at home in Yulman Stadium. Your thoughts on that 19-point spread? You think they cover that against the Mean Green?
You know, I'm kind of from that area where Denton is. So I'm gonna rep the Mean Green here.
Plus 19. All right, I like that. I like it.
I'm gonna rep the Mean Green here,
Not
they're about 2
not a
hours from
pick, but
not
what
even 2
side you
hours.
would. Yeah, not a pick, but that's what side you would take if you were forced, right? Is that
That's
what
what
you're
side
saying?
if I was in the game, I'd be rooting for the Mean Green. I know some people there, got some friends there, I'd be rooting for the Mean Green.
Heard that. All right. Iowa, Minnesota. This one probably gonna be a low scoring affair, I would think. Iowa 5.5 point favorites against the Gophers at home. Your thoughts on them?
You said Iowa's 5.5 against Minnesota?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I like Iowa here, but I don't know. I mean, I'd probably stay away from it. That's
Yeah, that's
interesting.
what I'm saying. That's
Um,
probably a no touchy for me as well.
yeah, because I think Iowa should win, but whether they win by 3 or by 7 is up to them. So, we'll see what happens. I'm not confident that they win by 5.
All right. I I might give you that. West Virginia 2.5 point favorites at home against Oklahoma State. Um, Thoughts?
I'll make that my last one. I think West Virginia beats Oklahoma State here. I think that I just think that I kinda like what I've seen out of West Virginia just a little bit. What do they got? They got Derek Green, right?
Yep.
I like what I've seen out of him. I think Oklahoma State, they've kinda looked like they put it together a little bit, the past couple weeks, with Alan Bowman and everything and what happened with their whole quarterback situation. I mean, that was terrible, but, um, I think that we're starting to see a little bit of Oklahoma State, but I think West Virginia's gonna knock them off their tower a little bit. I think Mike Gundy's gonna have to answer to some questions about him being on the hot seat after this weekend, especially if they lose to West Virginia, and I think they're gonna lose by a little bit more than 3. I think they might lose by at least 7, maybe 10, and Mike Gundy's gonna have to answer some big time questions.
I could see it going that way. Um, I I really like Garrett Green as well. I think if Garrett Green was on Oklahoma State's roster, I think this would be a very good Oklahoma State team. Um, so I don't disagree. I'm not going to touch this one. I think that this is one of those that going in, I don't really know what Oklahoma State team we're going to get, and I think this is kind of what's going to gauge where they go the rest of the season as far as what my expectations are. Because beating
Yeah.
Kansas is huge. Beating Kansas State was huge. Those are big wins that I didn't have being wins at all going into those weeks. I thought those were two L's that the Cowboys were going to take, and they didn't. Um, and maybe Kansas State's really bad. Maybe Kansas without their starting quarterback isn't great. I think we're allowed to say that. But this is a full strength West Virginia team. You're going to get their starters, so we'll see how that pans out. I think you're probably right. I think Oklahoma State probably loses this game, but it's a winnable game, and that's why that spread is so low. 2.5 points, really low spread. We'll see how things develop. Here's going to be my first pick. I'll give it to you right now. I'm picking Houston plus 22 over Texas. Not for them to win, but for them to cover the 22. I think
I
that
like
Texas
that.
probably wins by 17 or 20. Um, I think that Houston is going to make this a little bit more competitive than 22 points. I just think that spread's just huge.
I like that. That's a huge spread, yeah. 22 points, they should cover that.
Yeah, so I like that as my first pick for this week. North Carolina plays Virginia. I'm not expecting that to be. I mean, they're 23-point favorites here. I like the way the Tar Heels look. I think 23 might be right. I mean, that's a big one too. That's a big one too. I mean, Virginia's bad. I will 100% give you that. Virginia's bad.
Yeah,
Um,
Virginia's bad. We
I
can't say it enough.
so, I mean, what are your thoughts? You think 23 is too high, or are we thinking that? Yeah, you think that North Carolina wins this by freaking 30?
I mean, I think North Carolina probably wins this by 30, but that's a big spread.
It's big.
You know, it's a big spread. So I don't know.
Um, but yeah, that's another ranked team that's in action on Saturday. Let's look at the next game I've got on the list here. As we head down here to another ranked team, Ole Miss and Auburn. Um, Ole Miss is actually a 5.5 point favorite on the road here against the Tigers. I like Ole Miss to cover that. That's gonna be my
I
second
do
pick.
too.
I think that's my second pick is Ole Miss minus the 5.5. I don't like Peyton Thorne at all. I think he's garbage, and I think Auburn's garbage. And I think that they're
Mm.
just not very good. I think they might win. They might be a 6-win team this year if they're lucky. Um, they are mid to the exact term of mid. They're not oh my god egregious bad, but it's like yeah nothing to go home and write about. So I like Ole Miss there. Um, do you want to talk about Texas Tech, BYU, or TCU, Kansas State at all? Yes, no. No
Yeah,
ranked.
not
Yeah,
really. I don't
no,
think
no,
those are
no,
tough.
no ranked teams there. Um, well, we do have a rivalry game, and I know how you feel about this rivalry game, and this is one where again I'm betting on this spread. It's gonna be huge, and rightfully so. Michigan a 25-point favorite against Michigan State in East Lansing on the road. Um, I I like Michigan State to cover the
I like
25.
Michigan State. I like Michigan State to cover the 25.
It's just, I mean, Michigan's good, and they've beat teams by 30 or more points several times this season, but this is a rivalry game. I think that this changes kind of the aspect of kind of the desperation of Michigan State. If they win this would be like their Super Bowl because they're probably not winning very many games this season. Um,
The thing is, it's in East Lansing, and
yeah,
that's a big deal.
yeah,
That's a big deal.
yeah. So I think Michigan State covering the 25 will be my third pick of the week, and we'll see how it goes. We're just hoping for not a blowout. That's all we're hoping for. Um, Next on the list, and this will depend on the health of quarterback Riley Leonard. Duke is on the road against Florida State. Florida State 14-point favorites against the Blue Devils. Your thoughts on this game?
I think you should take Duke. That's what I think.
It'll depend.
I think you should take them.
If Riley
I think
Leonard
you should
does,
take Duke.
I would just stay away from this. If Riley Leonard doesn't play, it's Florida State by
Yeah, if he doesn't
21
play.
plus. If Riley
Yeah,
Leonard
you're right.
plays, I still think Florida State wins this by 10. Duke plus 14 would be the way I would go if I was going to touch this, but I'm not touching this. I just don't like it. I don't know enough at this point about the
Ride
health.
with the Blue Devils, man. Ride
I,
with the Blue Devils.
I just I like Florida State. I like Florida State. You know what? Fuck it. Give me Florida State minus the 14. They're beating the shit out of them. It's
Whoa!
over. You talked me into it. It's over. Like it's Jover. Like I'm sorry, but I'm banking on no Riley Leonard. I don't think he's gonna play. I don't think Riley Leonard plays, and I think Duke just falls victim to the fact he's not healthy. I think that's gonna be the
Jeez.
storyline here. Your thoughts on Army being 35-point dogs against LSU on the road?
Um, jeez.
Yeah, it's a huge spread. That thing is huge.
Yeah,
That thing is
that's big.
it's okay. It's 30. It's not 35, but 30 is huge. That's a huge spread. I mean,
Yeah, I
they're
don't
thinking 30.
know.
They're thinking 35 nothing LSU probably. They're thinking 42 to 10.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
don't think
I mean,
LSU is. I don't think LSU is that good. I don't know.
those tickets are
I
36
might take
bucks. You want
Army.
to drive down to Louisiana and watch Army just get the shit knocked out of them by LSU? I will personally spend $72 in a 10-hour drive to New Orleans to go.
To watch
uh,
Army lose.
yeah, ooh. Um, yeah, I don't know. Does Army cover that 30? I just don't know. Are they bad? They're really bad, aren't they? They're fucking terrible.
They're bad, but they're bad. I don't know. Yeah,
How
I might take.
let me look at their
You should
schedule real
take
quick.
LSU for fun.
Yeah, let me look. They lost to UL Monroe. They've lost to Boston College, Troy. The Troy shut them out 19 nothing. I think the 30-point spread may be covered. I think LSU might cover. I think that
Yeah,
spread may be too low. I think I might take LSU
that game's
minus
gonna be
the 30.
31. Game's gonna be 31-0.
Yeah, yeah. I'm taking LSU minus the 30 as my next pick. I think that's probably set in stone. Um, last two here for you. You have some big ones. Utah at USC. This one at
Yeah.
7 o'clock on Fox. The spread right now between this is USC minus 5.5. Um,
Mm.
again, this will.
What's the news on Cam Rising?
Let me see. Let me see. I'm looking right now.
Because that's God, that's so important. Or maybe it isn't.
Cam Rising. Let's see.
Which I mean, that's a different conversation. Maybe Cam Rising isn't as important as we think so for this Utah team. Maybe USC is bad enough that Utah can take care of them without Cam Rising. That'd be a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, if USC loses to Utah here, what are we thinking? I mean, does USC slide out of the top 25? Maybe. Caleb Williams slides far down the Heisman list, that's for sure. I mean, my thing about Utah USC is that Utah is the better team, but without Cam Rising, Caleb Williams can erase enough of the mistakes that USC is going to make and that USC's defense is going to give up that I'm not sure if Utah can score enough points to keep up with USC. I just know that Utah's going to score probably 21, 28 points. It's all up to if USC can actually beat that defense and score 28 to 35 points. And I don't think that happens. I don't see I don't see USC winning this game.
Yeah, I don't. Hmm. As far as
I mean, just
injury and
like as an OU fan, someone who's seen Alex Grinch play, call defenses against teams very similar to Utah. I I don't see a way that USC wins this game unless Caleb Williams plays fantastic and Cam Rising is out. I mean, Caleb Williams is going to have to launch himself back into Heisman contention if he wants to win this game. That's kind of how I feel about it. I think Lincoln Riley is 100% dependent on Caleb Williams at this point.
Yeah, it says right here that Cam Rising is ahead of schedule as far as his healing process goes, but they don't know if he's gonna go against USC this week. Um, I
Crazy.
I mean that's
And I think like they need him. They need him.
yeah
So
I think without Cam Rising, I think USC probably wins it. It's a home game for them. Even if they don't, like you said, that's a different conversation. I'll be rooting for Utah, but I don't know if that's gonna
oh yeah.
go well. Um, here is another one for you. Clemson is a 3-point favorite on the road against Miami in Hard Rock Stadium. Your thoughts on Clemson and
Right.
Miami?
Clemson is a what favorite against
Three
Miami?
3 point.
Give me Clemson. I mean, that's what I would take. Um, Miami doesn't look good. Clemson looks like they're improving. And they look like a team that's actually decent. So
Yeah, I might
give me
take the other
Clemson.
side. I think I like Miami here. From what I saw last night against North Carolina, I don't see how Clemson's defense stops that offense. Miami's got an offense. Um,
Yeah, but Miami's losing to Georgia Tech, and
I shouldn't have lost that game, but it shouldn't have been
they
competitive.
shouldn't have
Yeah,
lost that game. But it shouldn't have been that. They
yeah, it
shouldn't
shouldn't
have
have been that
been at
close.
that point.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe Clemson. Yeah. And then to round it out, we got these last two ranked teams. This one is a big spread too. Washington 28.5 point favorites against Arizona State. Um,
Yeah, that's easy. Easy
I
money.
I think Arizona State plus the points. You know, no, you think this is a 31 point victory for
I think Michael
Washington?
Penix, as long as Michael Penix plays and he's looking at his odds in the Heisman right now, he's like, I gotta score at least 5 touchdowns a game. So I mean, he's gonna air it out. I don't know. I think Washington
Okay.
beats the living shit out of them.
And then UCLA and Stanford. UCLA 16.5 point favorites on the road against the Cardinals.
No problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that either. I think that's it. As far as my picks go, um, I made 3 or 4. I think I'm gonna choose Clemson minus the 3 and USC minus 5.5 as the other two. If there is another space available, I'll take Arizona State plus the 28.5. I just don't know why. I just don't think Michael Penix is going to play. So I think he's gonna take the week off, and Washington still wins that game by like 20 points. But I think the backup plays for the Huskies to get him ready for the week after. So let's slip into the last segment we've got here. It's who's drinking that Kool-Aid?
No, I want some Kool-Aid.
Shut the love, bud. Drink the Kool-Aid. It ain't the end, baby. It's a new day. Future's so bright, I bought some new shades. Toast that, bottoms up. Drink the Kool-Aid.
All right, drinking the Kool-Aid, we have USC fans who say it's time to fire Lincoln Riley and hire Urban Meyer. Is I mean, this post reads, there was a reason Lincoln Riley didn't win a natty in Oklahoma. He'll do. He's a hell of an X and O guy, but just doesn't have the it. Just doesn't have the it factor to offer $12 million a year to Lincoln, reinstate NIL, allow him to pick his staff, and then boom, problem solved. If we're struggling like this with a Heisman-winning quarterback, the future looks awful. Hire Urban Meyer.
So I don't agree with the last part, but I'm not. I don't think Urban Meyer's your guy, but Lincoln Riley is one not going to be able to get you the defense you need to ever win a natty. That's just true. And two, I agree. He just doesn't have the it factor. Can like give me a thought experiment. Can you imagine being down 7 at halftime and Lincoln Riley giving you a pep talk or giving you like a halftime speech in the locker room? It's the most boring thing you've ever heard. Like Lincoln Riley, he doesn't have that. That's why I'm happy with Brent Venables over Lincoln Riley right now as an OU fan because I think Brent Venables has that. Brent Venables is running the stands at 5 in the morning every day, and he's playing scout team quarterback, getting taped up with the guys in the locker room. Like Lincoln Riley, he strikes me as a coach that's going to sit in his office and not talk to anyone. So I think that Lincoln Riley is one, he's a trash human being, and two, Just not. He doesn't have the it factor. He's not that guy, and he can't lead a team to a national championship. He needs a head coach with the it factor, and he needs to be the OC if he wants to be a national championship and on the college level. Do I think that he could have success in the NFL? Yeah, I do. Like as a head coach in the NFL, he could have success, but that's because those guys are already motivated by the millions of dollars they're making. You know, for Lincoln Riley, he's really got to motivate those guys at USC. He's got to give them the pregame speeches. That matters a lot more in college football, and that's just not something he's capable of.
Yeah, I think you're looking at this in the same way I'm looking at this. Is he's a guy that comes in when he's got a Lambo to work with, and when he leaves, you've
Yeah,
got a hand-me-down pickup. I mean,
yeah,
it's that kind of thing, and it's hard to ruin a Lamborghini, but he ruined the Lamborghini in Norman and left Brent Venables to pick up the pieces, and look what he's done with that. So far so
we
good.
have a we
Um,
got a Bugatti now.
um, I mean, currently you do. Well, I think right now an Acura would probably be Acura right now. You got a nice Acura right now. In about 4 weeks,
Yeah,
we can upgrade it to maybe a Mercedes, and then we'll get to the Bugatti if the CFP is in play after the first week of December.
but
Um,
I want to give Lincoln Riley a little bit of credit. That team was 4-8.
they were. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
they were not good, but I mean Caleb Williams can change you from a 4-8 to an 8 and
it's
4
it's
like
because he
that,
it's
though.
because he
Yeah,
took it's because he ripped
yeah.
the
He ripped
doors and the
yeah.
engine and the paint and the seats out of the Lambo and Norman and put it
Yeah,
over there into
exactly.
USC.
Yeah,
Put it on its
he
pickup,
he's
put
driving
it
a
on its defense.
yeah he was
So it's
dry
a Lambo with the
yeah
ugly ass truck pickup in the back.
he's driving a Corolla with a spoiler on the back right now, and some
Yeah.
NOS. It's got NOS, a spoiler, and
The
some
Zachariah Branch has the NOS and it's got Caleb Williams as a spoiler and they're cruising, baby.
yeah, and Lincoln Riley's that underglow, that ugly underglow that you can get. Um, yeah, I mean this is I mean look, I mean I understand USC fans panicking, because they have the right to, and the
Yeah.
thing is, it's so funny because if you saw that video I released last night about the Lincoln Riley timeshare experience, if you haven't taken a look at it, take a look at it. It kind of personifies exactly how USC fans got scammed. You got scammed. You did. You sat there and you thought the OU was getting scammed. You sat there and you said, "Hey, look, I mean, we're USC. We don't get scammed. We don't we hire winners. We don't hire
We're
losers.
USC.
We're USC." And then, guess what happens? You have nights like last night where you crap the bed. You have years
Yeah.
like last year where you lose to Tulane after having a huge lead and Utah bops you twice. I mean, that's what you get. You get a Lincoln Riley that has a team that's good enough to win the games against lesser teams, and then when a team comes that has anywhere close to a dynamic offense, you get smoked. Like, I'm talking just absolutely smoked. And when I say smoked, I mean I just mean you lose, because a lot of these games have been close losses as well, but it's like it's to teams you shouldn't have lost to. Like, if your team's really that
Yeah.
good, you shouldn't be losing to these teams. At least not Utah twice. You
Mm.
can lose
And
once.
overtime with
Yeah.
Colorado and
Like, ooh.
like this team, this is not a good team.
No. And it's got, I
Just
mean,
not a good team.
it's just, it
We're gonna
looks.
see that. We're gonna see if they sneak into the playoffs somehow, if they sneak into that playoff, they are they're gonna lose bad.
Yeah, and the thing is
Bad.
they
I
would
mean,
need
we're
to.
talking like LSU against OU 2019,
Yeah, they
Lincoln
would.
Riley as the head coach. Like that, they're gonna get smoked bad.
Yeah, I mean, but the sad thing is if they backdoor their way into that, that means that Washington's a fraud. That means Oregon's a
Yeah.
fraud. I mean, and that's more concerning to me, right?
Well,
Because
I don't know if that means they're frauds because it's Caleb Williams at the end of the day. Like if Caleb Williams wins
but
you a
that
game, he
defense
wins you
is
a
so
game.
egregiously bad.
It's
If any of those teams let that defense have any sort of victory at the end of 4 quarters, it's a failure. Like,
there's so
if
here's
the only way that
the
you're gonna lose to USC is if you turn the ball over 5 times. That's how you lose.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That's the only thing that they have good going for them on the defense is turnovers. So I mean, as long if the offense doesn't take care of the ball, that defense is good at getting turnovers. That's the only thing Alex Grinch can coach is turnovers.
Well, and that wasn't even happening at OU either. That was when you knew that it was bad.
Yeah.
Was when the guy who relies on the creation of turnovers couldn't get one to save his freaking life. I mean, that was when you
Just
knew it
bad
was over.
recruiting.
That's when you knew it was over.
It's easier to recruit in LA. I'll give them that. Like, it's
Yeah.
easier to recruit athletes and everything in LA than it is in Norman. We just
100%.
couldn't get the out-of-state guys over there, and at OU. I mean,
Yeah.
and to be fair, there's not a ton of good DB opportunities that you're
Yeah,
gonna
but
get
then
from
look
Norman.
at OU getting a guy from London. I mean, we're able to recruit
They're
outside the
global.
country,
Or everywhere.
able to recruit out of the country. Impressive.
Brent Venables is
Impressive.
my favorite person in the world right now.
And you know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna say if Oregon had Peyton Bowen last weekend, we win. I think if we have Peyton Bowen on the field, I think we win. And I think that he is that good of a player, and I am disappointed you guys took him from us. Because I think he is going to be a stud. I think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be fantastic. And I think he could have definitely been the difference between winning and losing that game last week against Washington. Any last thoughts before we get out of here, bud? I mean, I appreciate you taking the time.
No.
We've taken some weeks off, so we're trying to get back in the groove of it. We got preseason NBA basketball hitting the courts here and there. Chet Holmgren and Wemby going at it, looking like a battle for the ages for the next decade. I mean, we've got some stuff going on. We'll give you more in-depth NBA stuff probably next week when things kind of really get ramped up.
One more interesting thing I want to tell you. Coaches poll came out.
Ooh.
OU's number 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the coaches poll. Teams receiving first place votes.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia with 58, Michigan with 4, Ohio State with 1, and Oklahoma with 1.
Oh, so the coaches not believing in Florida State or Washington, which that may say some
OU
things.
was number 7 on the coaches poll, but received a first place vote.
Yeah, that's love is what that is. That's love. And the thing is they deserve it. And right now, I think if you were going to put some money on Dylan Gabriel to win the Heisman, this is the time to do it. Because
Plus 900.
like I said, I believe Washington will lose a couple games this year, and I think that that's going to tank Michael Penix, and I think OU runs the table, and I think that's the difference, and I think that's why Dylan Gabriel will once again bring a Heisman Trophy back to Norman. Bo Nix can win the rest of his games. It just won't be as impressive as what Dylan Gabriel has done at Oklahoma if they're able to run the table. And if they have to beat Texas twice, they have to beat Texas twice. But I think Kansas State or Tech probably trips up Texas, and it might not matter. It might still be Texas in the end. But I think it might be a 2-loss Texas and not a 1-loss Texas. So we'll see. This week will be interesting. Thanks for hanging out with me this week. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
And we will catch you for episode number 50 next week. We have hit the 50 mark, and it is a big, big deal. So it's almost been a year of doing this. So big time props for Zach for coming on and adding a good element. And I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you have an outlet to vomit all your sports stuff out into the world. And I'm glad I'm the one able to bounce stuff off of you.
Oh yeah, it's been a ride going for number 50. Ooh.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next week. Y'all take it easy. And for me and Zach here for St0ner Sports Radio Podcast number 49, keep a stick on the ice.